Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Story 1. I'm begging you not to upvote this post. Don't upvote this. Don't reply. Every single interaction shifts my reality a little further. And I don't know what happens when there's nothing left to shift. I know how it sounds, but I'm not joking. I'm writing this because every time someone responds to me online, my apartment changes. Small at first, the couch cushion flipped, a mug rotated handle out instead of in, but now it's impossible to ignore. I should stop typing. I should stay offline entirely. But I'm terrified of forgetting. I'm terrified that if I stop documenting, the changes will become permanent and no one will know. I need someone to know what's happening. That's why I'm posting. It started 2 weeks ago. A co-worker texted me, okay, at 9:03 p.m. I checked my phone at 9:04, and when I glanced toward the kitchen, the clock was gone. Just gone. Screw holes in the wall where it hung. Nothing else. It was at that moment that I made the connection of the odd changes possibly being connected with interaction with me via technology. I thought I was losing it. Curiosity made me test it. I made a throwaway account and asked strangers to comment. Every single reply shifted something. A picture frame rotated 45 degrees. A dining chair slid closer to the door. My toothbrush multiplied. Now there were 2 of them sitting in the holder, both damp, both streaked with the exact same bit of toothpaste. That's when I stopped. Too risky. Then my girlfriend, Sam, started texting. Hundreds of messages over 2 hours. I know that's excessive, but we were already in a rocky place before all this happened. She hates when I don't respond right away. I know, kind of toxic. But that's another issue that I'm not worried about at the moment. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I knew if I opened any reply, anything she said could trigger another change. But ignoring her only made her panic. And the notifications kept piling up. When I finally braved my phone to silence the notifications, my apartment had transformed. The living room rug was draped across the ceiling, stretched taut and thin like a skin. It shouldn't have been able to stretch like that without ripping. The couch was flipped upside down, and the fridge had somehow moved into my bedroom, humming against the wall beside my bed. The outlet itself at the fridge was plugged into and stuck firmly into the side of my bed frame. I have no idea how it was even still running. The worst part was a faint sound of drawers slamming again and again, even though every single one of them stood wide open. She didn't know what she'd done. I never replied. I haven't told Sam. I can't risk her text again. I haven't called my brother either. I want someone close to notice if I disappear, but I can't let them trigger more changes. I tried documenting the pattern. The changes aren't random. They depend on the volume and timing of the interactions. One comment by itself makes small shifts, but a flood of activity all at once causes reality to unravel faster. That's why Sam's barrage of messages nearly destroyed my apartment in one night. And it's not just objects anymore. Yesterday, after 3 upvotes on a test post, I walked into my bathroom and didn't recognize my reflection. It was me, but out of sync, half a second behind my movements, grinning when I wasn't. I've started keeping a notebook, recording every interaction and every alteration, but the writing is changing too. Last night I opened the notebook and the ink from older entries had rearranged itself into a single sentence. Keep going. I don't know why I keep posting. Maybe I need proof. Maybe I need witnesses. Maybe it's a cry for help. But every comment, every upvote, every interaction accelerates the chaos. I can feel the apartment. No, the space around me, reacting. Objects rearrange while I'm typing. My chair just scrape an inch across the floor on its own. I see Sam's notifications still coming through. 30 new messages. I can't answer. I can't risk it. I won't. My hands shake as I type. The light outside my window hums louder, pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. Though my apartment is on the 4th floor and no streetlight should be that close, I know it's coming. The longer I post, the more changes will occur. I don't know if the changes are permanent or if they're even bound to my apartment. I don't know if reality itself is starting to bend around me. But if I disappear tonight, if my reflection becomes someone else entirely, maybe you'll see this and understand. Maybe someone, somewhere, will see the warning. Please, whatever you do, don't reply. Don't upvote. Just read and remember. I checked my reflection one more time tonight, and it was smiling at me. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this a single post. I can't chance any more online presence. If things get too crazy and something happens that I have no choice but to tell the world, I might make an update. If things somehow calm down and all of this stops, I'll let you know too. In the meantime, please keep quiet on my posts. It could be harmful to the very fabric of our reality if you don't. Story 2. My mom vanished in the woods 8 years ago. I just got a letter from her. I woke up hungover that day in my college dorm. I had drunk way too much at a bar the night before, celebrating until sunrise what would be my 20th birthday. When I checked my mailbox around noon, there was a white envelope with handwriting on it and no sender. Happy birthday, Carrot. I'm still waiting for you at the same place. Come here tomorrow at dawn and look for my blue coat. Signed, Mom. Reading those words sent chills all over my body. Since my mom vanished 8 years earlier, my family had gotten dozens of fake letters and false leads. But that word, carrot, told me this one was different. It was our inside joke. She started calling me that after I once scarfed down a whole plate of carrots, just so she'd let me go play at the arcade. Nobody else could have known. My mom disappeared on a trail near town. We used to hike it almost every Sunday as a family. It was about 2 miles, ending at a pond where locals like to fish. That day, my dad was sick, so it was just me and her. We laughed and walked until I had to pee. She told me to go ahead and stay behind, maybe 20 feet away. Nothing seemed unusual while I was peeing in that tree, except for the sound of a branch snapping, which I brushed off as nothing. I finished, turned around to call her, and she was gone. I waited half an hour, thinking maybe she'd stepped off the trail too. Then I ran to the pond. Then I sprinted back to the parking lot, and the car was still there, locked. She had vanished into thin air. One of the local fishermen called my dad and the cops, and soon they combed every inch of that forest. Everyone was looking for her blue jacket, something that would stand out against the trees, but they never found a trace. Pretty soon the whole state knew about it. The kid that lost his mom. It usually went the other way around. Then came the TV reports, the YouTube channels, the podcasts. Theories stacked up. First, people said she left due to an affair with a co-worker, a known womanizer, that had suspiciously moved out of state. Second, that she was killed by the so-called pickaxe maniac, a serial killer who'd murdered 3 women in the region a few years earlier and usually leaves a murder weapon at the spot. Third, the cops considered my dad might have done it for the life insurance money. No proof ever surfaced, and her case faded into silence. Right after I got the letter, I called my dad, telling him about the carrot thing. His reaction was hard to read. We hadn't spoken in months after some stupid fights, but he insisted the letter was a prank. He practically begged me not to go, said I should call the police immediately. His desperation ticked me off, so I hung up on him. Same as last time we argued. I decided I'd go back to that trail. Even if it was a joke, I needed to know if there was any hope left of seeing my mother. I drove all night and got there at dawn, parking near a pickup with some fishing equipment in it. The only other vehicle there. The trail was burned into my memory from all those childhood walks, even if I hadn't set foot on it since the day she disappeared. I walked for a few minutes and stopped at the same spot where I'd stepped off years ago to pee. Standing there again felt unreal, and not in a good way. I reached the same tree I had peed on and froze, staring at the trunk like it owed me something. Then I heard a crack behind me, like a branch snapping, just like I remember from that day. I spun around and saw nothing unusual, just the wind pushing leaves. Then I noticed it, a flash of blue in the distance. I followed it excitedly to find a tree with a tight blue coat wrapped around the trunk. I touched it and knew it was the same one she wore that day. Tears fell off my eyes almost automatically. Tucked under it was another envelope. I pulled it out and it had the same handwriting. "Glad you came, Carrot. I'm right beneath you." I looked down and the ground nearby looked freshly disturbed, like it had been dug up not long ago. My hands shook as I started digging, fast, frantic. Whatever truth was buried there, I needed it, or I thought I needed it. Soon I hit something solid. I clawed the dirt until I lifted out a small wooden box, maybe 10 inches wide. It was sealed before I tore it open. Inside were only 2 objects. One of them was a human skull with a massive fracture on top. The other one was an old pickaxe where a dark red stain had long dried. Terror ran through every vein in my body when I saw it. And then I heard it again, the branch snapping behind me. I whipped around, panic in my throat. Now I could hear the steps coming my way. Whoever had killed her was here to finish the job with me. More snapping, closer this time. My eyes darted between trees, desperate to catch movement. Then I saw it, a figure in black, wearing a hat. And behind him, 3 more shapes, police officers. Turned out my dad had called half the town's police department, begging them to stop me. That's what saved my life. They told me the pickup I'd seen earlier probably belonged to the pickaxe maniac. When they searched it, they found hair, scraps of skin, even a severed finger. Inside were dozens of letters, all written the same way as the ones I'd gotten. For some twisted reason, he seemed obsessed with me, like he wanted to finish what he'd started with my mom years later. He wasn't caught that day. He must have bolted into the woods on foot the second he spotted the cops. The only good thing that came of it was this. Just a few yards away, they found another box with my mom's remains. We could finally give her a real burial. But I can't shake the feeling that nothing's really over. I still don't know what that monster wanted with me. I still don't know how he knew about the nickname Carrot. And most important of all, I still don't know where he is. He's still out there. Story 3. I found a missing girl at the bottom of a hole. Last year, my friends and I decided to do a 3-day hike on the Washita Trail. Ben, Sean, and I had done multi-day hikes together on different parts of the roughly 210-mile trail before, and we're hoping to knock out another section before the summer was over. The section we decided to hike this time had a public camping area at the base of the trailhead that led to the Washita Trail proper, which we had decided to take advantage of. We had parked Ben's car at the ranger station near our endpoint and carpooled in mind to the camp. When we arrived, the sun had started to set, but the place was bustling. Kids were riding bikes around the footpath, and families were sitting around grills, enjoying the scenery. Places like this weren't really my cup of tea. I preferred more secluded, quiet areas to set up camp, but something about the communal atmosphere gave rise to a sense of nostalgia for the times my family took me camping at places like this. By the time we set up our tents, night had fallen, and the crackling of dozens of campfires filled the air. We ate a quick supper of roasted hot dogs and a few beers before heading to bed. That next morning, I awoke to distant shouts echoing through the campsite. I sat up onto my elbows and listened, trying to make out what was being said. Before I could determine what was being yelled, I was startled by a quick slapping at the front of my tent. Worming my way out of my sleeping bag, I unzipped my tent flap and poked my head outside. Shivering at the cold morning air, I saw Ben and Sean in front of their tents, pulling on their hiking boots. "Get your clothes on, man," Ben said as he saw me. "What's going on?" "A kid's missing. Probably wandered off last night," answered Sean, cinching his bootlaces tight and standing up. I turned back into the tent and started getting dressed. My heart sank as I heard the shouts become more abundant as other campers joined in calling out the child's name. "Sarah, Sarah, Sarah." I hoped that she was just in the shower room or had woken up early to go to the playground nearby. But I couldn't help but think of the countless stories I'd heard of kids being abducted or disappearing into the woods. only for their bodies to be found miles away, or not at all. Ben and Sean were already a few campsites down from ours and calling out to the wood line when I came out of my tent. I hurriedly tied my boots and joined them. Do we know what she looks like? I asked. Brown-haired, blue-eyed, 8-year-old girl named Sarah. Came a voice from behind us. I turned to see a college-age guy walking towards us ahead of another guy and a girl who were around the same age and wearing packs. Any idea which way she went? Sean asked. No. Her dad said she was asleep in her tent when he went to bed around 11 last night and was gone when they woke up about 30 minutes ago. Said her shoes and flashlight were missing. I'm guessing they've already checked the bathrooms? I asked, looking towards a brick structure at the center of the campground. Yeah, we checked, said the girl. No luck. Listen, we're going to head to the trailhead to look while the rangers get the main search organized. I asked them and they gave us the go-ahead. Do you guys want to help out? The first guy asked. For sure, Ben said, looking to me and Sean as we nodded in agreement. We'll grab our packs and meet you there in 5. We made it back to our site and threw some essentials in our packs. I realized that I had left my water bottle in my car, but Sean, being the prepper that he is, gave me a spare. Once packed, we strapped on our packs and headed toward the trailhead, leaving our camp set up since it was clear our trip had been delayed. The shouts had tapered off as people began to gather around a park ranger at the center of the camp area. Walking toward the trailhead, we heard sobs coming from a campsite just off the path. A park ranger was sitting beside a woman, who could only be Sarah's mother, crying into a pink pillow in the shape of a unicorn, while a deputy stood attempting to speak to the girl's frantic father. We glanced at each other as we moved past the heartbreaking scene. The expressions on each of our faces were of sorrow-tinted determination. James, Kristen, and Paul were the names of our new companions. They were each outdoorsy types like we were, and were just as well equipped. We met at the trailhead just outside of the camp area and gathered around a large wooden map and formulated a plan. There were several offshooting trails which snaked through the valley. Main Street was the 8-mile circular trail which returned to Trailhead and connected to the Washita Trail at the top. Baker's Falls was a cutback trail which led to a waterfall 4 miles from the trailhead, and Vista Trail lead up the mountain 5 miles to the north. We decided that it would be best to split into groups of 2 in order to hit each trail while staying as safe as possible. Paul and Kristen volunteered to take the Vista Trail. Sean and James decided to take Baker's Falls, leaving Ben and I to take Main Street. It was agreed that we would meet at the trailhead in 7 hours, giving us time to be thorough with our searches and be back before nightfall. We knew cell service would be spotty if not altogether non-existent, but we exchanged numbers on the off chance we needed to contact each other and ensured we each had the ranger station's number. When we set off, Paul and Kristen headed north at the split and began their arduous trek up the side of the mountain, while the rest of us hiked east towards Baker's Falls. We didn't talk much, aside from occasionally calling out for Sarah. We were afraid that by making too much noise, we might miss hearing her and didn't want to distract each other and miss any sign of her. Just before noon, we arrived at the split for Baker's Falls. Sean and James headed down the mountain, while Ben and I continued on Main Street. It was a nice day given the circumstances. If it were any other time, I would have been greatly enjoying myself, taking the cool air and absorbing the majestic scenery. But for obvious reason, I didn't pay any of that much mind. After a while, James and Sean's echoing calls faded away as we made our way toward the intersection with the main trail. We took our time, listening intently between each call-out. The trail began to turn north up the mountain at a sharper angle, slowing us down quite a bit. It was fairly taxing, and I found myself calling out less as I began to run out of breath. It had been a while since I had last hiked with a pack. I noticed Ben starting to struggle as well, so I suggested we take a break. After all, we had been going non-stop for several miles at this point. We found a shaded spot next to an outcropping of rocks just off of the trail, took off our packs, and pulled out some snacks. We sat silently eating and listening between deafening bites of granola. At first, it sounded like a bird. In the distance behind us, a ways off of the trail, I heard a shrill cry. I stopped chewing and tapped Ben. Listen, you hear that. After a moment, it echoed again, a muffled cry that was almost certainly that of a child. We both jumped to our feet and called out. Sarah, the cry responded. Shit, she's up there. Ben cried as we both made our way around the outcropping, leaving our packs where they sat. Sarah, keep making noise. We're coming. I yelled. The cries became clearer as we trudged our way up the mountain off the trail, slipping on loose rocks and sticks. We were getting close. Ahead of us, we saw what appeared to be an opening on a small plateau through the trees. The vegetation began to thin out, and the ground became saturated with flat, rough, gray stones, which were much different than those that we had seen so far. As we made our way to the opening, it became evident that the crying was that of a little girl. The trees gave way to a large glade of gray stones. No trees or plants in sight. Sarah, where are you? Ben called, straining to catch his breath. Down here. A small voice squeaked from somewhere in the glade. In the middle of the opening was a small rise in the stones. Once we were about 15 feet away, I saw that it was a raised lip of a large hole about 7 feet across and blacker than night, a short way down. Jesus, Sarah, are you in there? I called down into the abyss. Yes, she replied through her sobs. Her voice echoed up towards us. She was a long way down. Are you hurt? I can't stand up, she cried. Damn it. Ben, did you put any rope in your pack before we left? No, did you? No. Sarah, are you bleeding? I don't think so, she said weakly. It's too dangerous to try and climb down there. These rocks could come loose and cave the whole thing in, said Ben, testing the edge of the pit. I pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked the screen, but found there was no service. Ben did the same and shook his head. Ben, get back to the trail and get help. I'll stay here with her. All right, I'll be back, he said before running back into the trees. Just hang tight, Sarah. We're getting you some help. Silence fell over the glade as Ben's footfalls faded into the distance. Sarah, her sobbing had stopped, and several seconds passed before she made another sound. Please come and get me. Her voice was weak and pleading. It's really dark in here. I turned my phone light on and held it into the opening. It illuminated a few feet down, but no further. I still couldn't see her. I promise we're going to get you out. It's not safe to come to you right now. I don't have the tools, and I don't want you to get hurt any more than you already are. I knew she must have been scared, and I felt horrible that she had to stay in that hole a second longer. I thought about dropping my phone to her for light or to play a game, but it might break and be of no use to either of us. I thought about my pack and hated myself for leaving it at the trail. I had a headlamp in the front pocket and some paracord I could lower it down to her with. Sarah, I have a flashlight and some snacks in my backpack on the trail. I'm going to go and dash. Don't leave me, she screamed. It was a loud, tormented, almost angry scream. Okay, I won't go anywhere. Silence returned to the glade. Looking at the opening in the rocks surrounding it, I noticed something odd. The rim of the pit was nearly a perfect circle. It definitely wasn't a natural formation. The rocks appeared almost as though they had been deliberately stacked. Sarah, how did you get in there? I fell. Did you fall from up here, or is there another way in somewhere? There was no response for a moment. I slipped and fell from up there. There was no sign of collapse on any side of the pit. I thought that maybe it was a stable structure after all. I can't climb out. My leg hurts really bad. She groaned. Can you please come down here with me? I'm really scared. I really considered it. Even if the structure was stable enough to hold my weight without collapsing, the hole was too wide for me to brace against the sides, and it would take a skilled rock climber to safely climb down with as small as the cracks and ridges of the walls were. I really wish I could, but it wouldn't be safe for either of us. There was no response. Are you thirsty? I asked, remembering the water bottle I had clipped to my belt. Yes. I unclipped the bottle and held it at the side of the opening. Sarah, can you see me? Uh-huh. Good. I need you to move as far as you can against the wall. I'm going to drop this bottle down to you, okay? Okay. I listened for movement, but heard nothing. Sarah, can you move against the wall? I did. I paused for a moment. Sarah, are you sure? This is kind of heavy, and I moved, she screamed. Jesus, all right. I mumbled as I dropped the bottle into the inky blackness. I waited for a thump and a cry, or to clatter against the floor, but no noise came. Did you get it? She didn't respond. Sarah, did you get the water bottle? Still no response. Shit. I knocked her out. I mumbled. Sarah, I got it, she said, breaking the silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. Don't scare me like that. I laughed as I pulled out my phone. Still no service. It had been nearly an hour and a half since Ben left. I did a quick calculation and estimated that it would be at least another hour before he returned with help. I sat next to the edge for a while, letting a sense of relief and accomplishment wash over me. We had done a really good thing here, and I was more than happy to sacrifice a hiking trip to help find this girl. I sat for a while longer, waiting for the sound of the cavalry rushing up the hillside, but was met with a blood-curdling scream from the pit. Sarah, what is it? Peter, there's something in here with me. Another scream. What is it? Sarah, what is it? I don't know. Please come down here. Please, please. Sarah, I'm gonna drop my phone down to you. Use the light and see what it is, okay? She continued screaming. I pulled my boot off and removed my sock, turned the light on my phone, and slid it inside, layering the sock on it for more cushion. I'm dropping the phone. Try and grab it. I yelled over her screams as I let the phone fall. I watched as the dim glow of the light through the sock disappeared into the darkness. A few moments later, the screaming stopped. Sarah, did you get the light? What was it? Again, nothing. Sarah, answer me, please. I got it, she said calmly. Is the light on? I don't see anything. There was a long pause. It broke. Oh, okay, that's fine, but you're all right now. Please, just come down here, Peter, she said in a whimper. I'm really sorry, but I told you it's not a say. I froze. Sarah, how do you know my name? There was no answer for a while. Answer me, Sarah. How do you know my name? It's on your bottle, silly, she giggled. That's not my bottle. Say a friend let me borrow it. There was no way she could have known my name, at the very least my full first name. I didn't think Ben had called me by name in the short time he was there, and even if he did, he calls me Pete. Come down here, she said in a raspy whisper. No, come down here. I stood and started to back away from the pit. Down here, down here. Help, help me, the voice screamed, changing pitches. I stumbled back and fell onto the rocks as I heard what sounded like bones scraping against stone from within the pit. Down here. Help. Here. The voice no longer resembled that of a child's, no longer that of a human. I stood and ran. I ran as fast as I could down the side of the mountain as unearthly screams bellowed from behind me. I fell again, this time rolling forwards, striking my hip against a stump, sending a wave of dull pain through my body. I stood and ran as best I could back to the way I had came. I wasn't sure where I came out on the trail, but I knew which way the trailhead was. I ran until I couldn't hear the screams, and kept running until I met a ranger coming up the mountain towards me at a jog. No, don't go up there. I shouted breathlessly. Calm down, you're safe. Are you hurt? He asked. I'll be all right, but you can't go up there. That's not Sarah. I don't. It's all right, Sarah's safe. Your partner's found her halfway up Vista Trail. He took me by the shoulders and started guiding me down the mountain. Where's Ben? Did he make it down? Yeah, Ben and the rest of your crew are down at the campsite waiting for you. Y'all did a good job. Really appreciate your help. We walked for a while before I was able to calm myself. What is that glade up there, that pit? What the fuck is in it? He sighed and gave me a quick glance. Nothing that you gotta worry about, he said with an uneasy smile. We made it back to the camping area, and I met up with Ben and Sean, who both understandably had a few questions. However, I didn't have time to answer them since the Rangers were shutting down the area, and we had to leave. We packed up our things and loaded my car just as they were closing the gates. On the way back to Ben's car, I told him what happened at the glade. Ben said the ranger freaked out when he told him what we had found and told him to stay at the campsite until he came back with me. Apparently, when Kristen and Paul found Sarah. She told them her mom was calling her from the woods when she went to the bathroom that night. So she followed her voice up the trail, but got lost. Sean thinks to this day that we're pulling some wild prank on him, but Ben and I know what we heard, what we saw. I haven't gone hiking since, and I don't think I will for a while. Story 4. Something was wrong about Ms. Katz's garden. When I first met my neighbor, Ms. Katz, she scared the shit out of me. I was walking up the cracked sidewalk to her front door to introduce myself because I had just finished moving in and wanted to start getting to know my neighbors. The house was uniquely large compared to all the other homes on the street. Adorned with steep slanted roofs and vertical wooden framing, a cacophony of plants bursting over the backyard fence on either side. It was a house that ended the street. The pavement of the road and sidewalk abruptly cut off into grass. The door was thick, with that looked like it weighed a ton. The brass gargoyle door knocker rapped loudly, echoing into the house as I stood for a moment waiting for a reply. I jumped when a creaky voice from my left said, "Hello there, dearie." I turned to look down at a cheery old woman's face that was wrinkled in a closed-eyed smile. I was startled. It felt like she had scared me on purpose. The backyard gate slammed shut, and I noticed that the old woman was wiping dirt off of her hands. She must have been gardening. "Hello to you as well. I just moved in next door." I said, trying to be friendly. "Welcome to Belmont Avenue. My name is Katrina Katz. Just call me Katz, dearie." She opened her eyes and continued smiling, but I was taken aback again. Her eyes were yellow. Very yellow. They looked like sickly saucers of spoiled milk. My apprehension turned to empathy for Ms. Katz. Yellow eyes can mean liver problems, something my own grandmother had struggled with for years. "I just want to say hello. I'm going to go get back to unpacking. You should come over for dinner sometime. Nice meeting you," I said. "I'm sure I will, dearie," Ms. Katz said. Then she turned back toward the backyard gate, glancing one more time at me before getting to her gardening, and I went back to my new home, which was filled with boxes that needed my attention. That night, I slept poorly. The house was dead quiet. The only noise was the air conditioning unit kicking on every once in a while. I am a very light sleeper, so that's why I woke up when a strange noise started permeating through the edges of my sleepy consciousness. There was a sound so quiet that a normal person would have slept through it. Starred asterisk. I lay covered in my bed, sensitive ears straining to discern what the noise was. It sounded like someone was digging in mud. I sat up, tried to quiet my breathing so I could hear where it was coming from, but my wooden floors made the sound reverberate from all directions in my room. I could not work up the courage to get out of bed and investigate. Something told me I should just lay down and put on some white noise to ignore it. Every night for a week did just that, ignoring the noise and getting some decent sleep. When I asked my other neighbor Todd, a nice middle-aged truck driver, one day if he had heard the noise, he said he didn't know anything about it. "I bet you it's Ms. Katz. You can catch her out pretty late sometimes. Between you and me, I think she has a bit of dementia. Just a bit. She loves her gardening. I've even seen her doing it at night, which is weird, but to each their own. She must love it. She imports special fertilizer all the time. Here comes a truck now." He nodded towards her house. A van pulled into the driveway. It had a purple flower logo on the metal siding that was indeed befitting of a fertilizer company. A burly man dressed in all black greeted Ms. Katz at her gate and started carrying brown sacks into her backyard. She noticed us watching and gave a cheery wave to us. While we waved back, Todd said, "Really sweet woman. I've known her for years. She's been living on Belmont Avenue as long as anyone can remember. Makes great apple pie." I decided to see the garden for myself that afternoon. I made it look like I was cleaning my gutters, which, to be fair, were disappointingly dirty, no thanks to my landlord. I stood up on my roof to peer over the bushes spilling into my backyard, only then realizing what a jungle Ms. Katz's backyard was. Bushes, flowers, vines, short and tall trees, bird baths, stone pathways, you name it. If Ms. Katz was really doing it all herself, it had to have taken up all of her time. The garden was in pristine condition and scattered throughout the yard with a large brown fertilizer sacks, some ripped open with black soil spilling out. There was a smell that rose out of the backyard and drifted towards me as I studied the garden. A sickly sweet stench that was quite pungent. I could see lavender, rose, and dracaena flowers, so it was possible they were responsible for the strange odor. Something was wrong, though. A part of my brain was reminded at the time of how my grandfather's large liquid fly traps smelled when they were full to the brim with dead insects. I was also reminded of rancid meat you discovered had been molding in the back of your fridge for weeks. An itch on the back of my neck grew while I was scouting. It took me a minute to notice the yellow eyes peering at me between large purple curtains out of the corner of my vision. I was startled and turned to look back at Miss Katz, unsure of how long she had been staring at me. She waved and smiled, nodding toward her garden like it was quite special before going inside. I couldn't be sure, but before I turned to face her, I could have sworn she was looking at me with a face contorted in utter hatred. It was 9 nights ago when I watched Miss Katz die. When I woke, I was confused. I could make out the soft noise from nights before that still somehow demanded every ounce of my attention. I looked to my nightstand and realized my phone was not playing my white noise. I must have forgotten to turn it on. I decided it was time to confront Ms. Katz. If she really did have dementia, maybe I could just talk to her and she would realize she should be asleep and not doing whatever weird shit she was doing in the middle of the night. I crept through the house, slowly opening the back door. The sound of crickets and rustling leaves mixed with a digging noise that was now sharp and clear. I could not stop myself from approaching a peephole in the fence. When I was a few spans from the fence, the sound suddenly stopped. I froze, waiting. A rhythmic thumping noise started coming down over the fence. What was she up to now? I had to know what she was doing. One eye closed, I peered through the hole into the backyard. The backyard looked like it did when I last saw it. Winding stone paths now illuminated by moonlight. More fertilizer bags were open, and the garden beds were torn up like plants were being rearranged. I quickly found her. Ms. Katz was on a ladder pulling at one of the fertilizer bags, which was stuck in one of her second-story windows. Pulling does not properly describe the motion. Ms. Katz was throwing her body weight faster than what seemed possible away from the window, the bag inching with each heave. She thrashed again and again and again. It looked like it hurt. It looked like her arms should have dislocated. I started panicking. Clearly Ms. Katz had more than a little bit of dementia, like Todd had said. I needed to help her, to get her to a hospital and make sure she was mentally sound. But it was too late. Suddenly Ms. Katz lost her grip on the bag, the cloth tearing from the tensile force, and in an instant was falling off of the ladder. She was weightless, air whipping her stained nightgown about while she plummeted. A pit formed in my stomach when I saw where she would land, the inevitable becoming more terrifying with each second. Splat. One of the short concrete bird baths that had a pointed house had completely pierced the abdomen of the elderly woman. I stood frozen while I processed what was happening. Not a single cry was uttered. Her death was instant. A hole the size of a basketball oozing blood where her stomach had been made me fall to knees and retch into the grass. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 as I started frantically searching for my dinky Walgreens first aid kit. An operator picked up. The operator asked in a calm voice, 911, what is your emergency? My neighbor is dead. She fell off a ladder and impaled herself on a bird bath. I yelled, panting as I sprinted down the sidewalk. The operator was clearly used to these kind of calls. Okay, slow down, sir. What is the address? 414 Belmont Avenue. Please hurry. Please. I stammered out as fast as I could. What is her name, sir? Katrina Katz. She's bleeding, please dash. Sir, is this a joke? What do you mean? I'm telling you the truth. I stopped in my tracks. I was so high on adrenaline, I couldn't understand what was happening. We've had at least 8 calls like this in the past year. Ms. Katz has always been fine when we respond. I don't understand dash. She is an elderly lady who does not need this harassment. I will not repeat myself. If you call again, I am sending an officer to arrest you for misuse of the 911 line. Goodbye. The operator hung up. The only sound left was my heavy breathing. I found myself walking toward the backyard gate. My momentum was the only thing that kept me going. I pushed open the gate, scanning the backyard. There was no ladder laying on the ground. Miss Katz was gone. Somehow she was not skewered on the bird bath as she had been a minute ago. I kept moving forward, unable to stop myself from approaching the bird bath. It was clean. Its undisturbed state mocked my fear and panic. There was no blood, but when I touched the concrete bird bath house, it was warm. I felt a pit in my stomach. The world was spinning around me. My head was pounding. "Dearie, what are you doing this time of night?" A sweet voice said. I whipped around. I felt like I was sinking into hysteria. The back door stood open, the wooden arch frame filled by Miss Katz's figure. There was no obvious sign of a gaping stomach wound. She appeared to have just woken up. She was looking at me, concern plain on the wrinkles of her face. I could see into the house. A few old lamps were turned on. I could just make out some ornate furniture covered in dust. The inside of the house certainly matched the outside. There was something that caught my eye. It was one of the large fertilizer bags with the purple flower logo, torn open and spilling over a wooden table onto the floor. The bag was not full of black soil. The bag was full of a bright flesh, indiscriminate chunks glistening in the lamplight. "Dear," I said, "are you okay?" Ms. Katz yelled, snapping my eyes away from the bag of flesh. She was no longer a sweet old woman who wanted to make sure I was all right. Her yellow eyes were strained open, demanding an answer from me, an explanation. I thought. I stood there, mouth working, I couldn't think. I heard some commotion. I wanted to make sure everything was all right. I stammered out. It seemed impossible that I was talking to someone that I just saw die. I felt nauseous. Doubt was flooding my mind. Was this real? Was I dreaming? Miss Katz's face eased into her usual sweet smile. "No commotion, dearie. I promise you everything is all right. Go back home and get some rest. I am sure you'll forget all about it in the morning." She looked at me, still smiling, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "It's late. People go missing at night, so you better be careful." She turned and slammed the door. I did not sleep that night. Instead, I turned on every light in the house and locked myself in my bedroom. I played the events of the night over and over again in my head. Every time I convinced myself it was real, I would convince myself I must have dreamed it, had some kind of lucid nightmare. But nightmares don't leave 911 calls on your phone history or dirt strewn throughout your house. Nightmares don't live next door. In my shaken state, come morning, the only thing to do was to go to work. Work was consistent, and I figured it would sort things out for me, pretend everything was normal. After I downed a third cup of coffee, I strode out the door. The sun, catching on morning fog, welcomed me to a new day. Todd stepped out his door right after me. We nodded to each other. Todd's expression soured when he saw something behind me. "None of my damn business." Todd grumbled around a cigarette in his lips. I turned to see what he had seen. A van with a large purple flower logo was backed up to Miss Katz's house. A few men unloading fertilizer bags. A part of me wanted to be drawn back into the events of last night. I pushed it down. I decided Todd was right. It was not any of my business. A full day of work set me back to a sense of normalcy. Pushing pencil for 8 hours really clears your mind. That night was silent, and I slept sounder than a hibernating bear without the need for a white noise machine. I waved to Ms. Katz when I saw her on my excursions out of the house. She often was garbed in gardening clothes, going in and out of her backyard. None of my business. 4 or 6 days, all was well. Until I woke up 3 nights ago, soaked in sweat, muffled screaming filling my room. I once had a friend of mine lose his arm. We were playing on some rocks in a forest during a camping trip, jumping back and forth between larger boulders, taking turns giving chase to one another. I was laughing while I chased my friend, both of us grinning ear to ear while we played. My friend was climbing higher and higher up the slope of the mountain, taking each gap in one big stride at a time, taunting me to catch him. Just before my little pointer finger could reach out and tag him, he lost his footing and slipped. I watched as my friend fell toward the ground below and stood frozen as he began screaming in pain. Bloody arm raised in the air, bone snapped in half at the forearm, sharp white bone dangling in 2 directions. I had never heard so much pain expressed before. My friend screamed until his voice was raw, thrashing about on a rock below. If I had acted sooner, running down the mountain to grab our parents, my friend might have saved his arm. But as a kid, I just stood frozen to the spot, unable to move. I was frozen then, in my bed, as I listened to the pain unfolding before me. Help me, please. Oh, God. Oh, God. It was muffled. The words could just barely be made out, but the pain was sharp and visceral. A part of me wanted to roll over, turn on the white noise machine, and pretend I hadn't heard anything. But I knew what I was going to do. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, forcing myself to take one step after another toward the house next door. There was no doubt this time. This was real. I needed to be braver, to not freeze, to help this person. The screaming grew clearer as I approached the house, slid through the gate, and approached the back door. I'm so sorry. I promise, the voice screeched. It was definitely coming from her house. I had to stop whatever was going on. I reached the door, knife held at the ready, swallowing when my hand grabbed the knurled knob and began to twist. I can't. The yelling suddenly cut off, stillness now deafening. Somehow the hinges of the door slid across each other smoothly, silently revealing the darkness of the house. Once inside, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding as quietly as possible. I moved through the room, past the old furniture, subconsciously aware of the bags of flesh strewn about, of the smell of death so rank I would normally empty the contents of my stomach. Passing old pieces of furniture covered in must, I found myself walking on kitchen tile, then rounding a doorway to face a steep wooden stairway. Time started falling forwards on a fixed track. I was floating up the stairs. I barely noticed a loud thud that sounded like a deflated basketball was dropped. Heat radiated from above. I was entering a tropical oven. The plaster of the walls was damp and rotted, with molding visible in bare patches. A squelching noise started coming from upstairs and washing down over me. I continued to move slowly toward the noise. At the top of the stairs was a hallway with closed side rooms, an open door at the end of the hall, the room behind the door illuminated by a sickly yellow ceiling light creeping out into the hall. Before I knew it, I swung the door open, revealing the horrible scene inside. It has taken me these days, since that night, to rationalize what I saw behind the door at the end of the hallway. In the moment, my brain put my body into shock. I continued to act, but was not comprehending how absolutely horrifying it all was. The floor was covered in dirt and flesh. The two substances were mixed together to form a paste that was thick and gelatinous. Ms. Katz's head was staring at me, upside down in the mush, eyeless sockets fixed in my direction. The decapitated head looked something like a pale jack-o'-lantern after weeks in the sun. All the flesh had been scooped out from the inside. I could see through the eye sockets into the pale skull. The base of the head where the neck should be revealed a perfectly calcified circle that looked like a doll head might when you wrung it off the body, a spacious cavity where a brain should be. I peeled my eyes on the ground and looked forward. A table was in the middle of the room. The rest of Miss Katz was hunched over the table, sitting on an old wooden stool. Her body was convulsing as something I couldn't see was ripping into the chest of a dead body sprawled on the table. It must have been the person I had gone to save. Slurping and crunching filled the room. There was screaming. It took me a second to realize that I was screaming. Slowly, the rest of Ms. Katz sat up from the table in the chair. Out of the stump of her neck, what looked like a slender frayed rope started stretching upward towards the ceiling, brown and glistening like an insect carapace. Slowly, its head started rising from the dead body on the table, pulled upward until it was almost touching the ceiling. Tendrils roughly a foot in length sprouted like fuzzy antennae in all directions along the vine-like neck. They constantly moved and twitched as they felt their surroundings. The head was covered in the same wriggly feelers, blacker than those on the neck. Once the head had risen almost 5 feet in the air, towering above me as an unholy obelisk. It twisted around to stare down at me. Insect mandibles twitched and chomped. Flesh smeared and stuck to mouth area, falling down the ground with thick splashes. The head was smaller than the discarded shell of a head on the ground by my feet, but the eyes were the same. The yellow eyes were large, bulging out the hard carapace. No eyelids concealed their bulbous shape. Its eyes were fixed on me. Pure malice penetrated me to my core. The next few moments occurred in the blink of an eye. Rapidly, the tendrils of the neck started pulling the creature back into Ms. Katz. Each tendril would shoot down into the old woman's body, accelerating the head downward. Sporadic jerks animated her corpse, arms shooting out, a seizure of movements unfolding before me until the insectoid head was the only visible part of the parasite, resting on the body's neck stump. All was still. A standoff had begun. In shock, I was rooted to the spot. A pit of dread opened up in my stomach, and I became aware of my heart pounding in my ears. It leaped toward me, pushing off the ground so hard I heard the floor break, crashing into me with force enough to break my ribs, sending us hurtling back through the hallway towards the stairs. On the ground, we struggled. I somehow managed to grab its shoulders and push with all of my strength as it tried to pop my head open with its layers of jaws. A full-throated roar came out of me, and I heaved us down the stairs. Each step smacked on the way down. At the bottom, I rolled into the kitchen onto my back. I had broken ribs and an ankle twisted the wrong direction. So all I could do was crawl backwards from the stairwell door, where I could hear snapping sounds that meant it was getting up. It forced Miss Cat's body to its feet, one arm disalacted and jetting upward. Standing naked in the dark doorway, a fleshy stomach hole was filled with twisted knots of insectoid spaghetti, where the bird bath had pierced through the body. Its eyes were two yellow orbs of light swaying back and forth in the darkness of the doorway. I noticed a shovel at my feet and frantically grabbed for it. I was too late. In the same moment I made my move, some of the knotted tendrils of Miss Katz's stomach wound shot out towards me. The wet tendrils were thick and flew across the kitchen, striking my left shoulder and digging into my flesh. The muscles of the arm seized. My muscles were forced to contract harder than my brain would allow. Every single muscle cramped at the same time. My biceps relaxed as my triceps continued to flex, which caused my arm to hyperextend. Bones cracked and my arm broke. I cried out in pain. "Oh, dearie, I love the way you scream." It spoke to me with a voice that was broken, full of hateful mirth. It sounded like Miss Katz was speaking while gargling crumbled bones. Suddenly my biceps flexed, snapping my arm the other way, my limp hand smacking into my shoulder. All I could do was grind my teeth and moan. With my free arm holding the shovel, I swung at the tendrils, severing them. It let out an ear-blistering screech, insectoid head thrashing. Enraged, it crouched and lunged for me once more. I was ready this time. Screaming my throat raw, I swung the shovel and hit it right between its eyes. One instant, the shiny black mouth was going to tear my throat out. The next, the carapace exploded, green slop flying in all directions. The body went limp and oozed all over me, tendrils seeping out over me onto the ground. The pungent smell of Miss Cat's body, old perfume, and rotting insect meat singed my nostrils. I could barely breathe with all the weight bearing down on me. My shock wore off and panic set in. I frantically tried to push the corpse off of me, my hands slipping again and again. Suffocating instigated desperation deep within me, allowing me to drain the last of my strength to finally roll it off myself. Then I lay alone in the silent house. I started sobbing. I took massive, uncontrollable heaves of air into my body and let them out through tears and groans. I could not stop until every last possible emotion had been wailed out of me. Once I was done, I stood numbly, used the shovel to limb my way out of the house, and packed a bag. I got into my car and rode out at dawn. After a stop to the local urgent care where I told a true enough story about a bad fall down some stairs, I had a boot for my foot and bandages for my ribs. I drove as far as I could and stopped at a motel. 3 days later, I am now riding for my third motel, slowly making my way back home, where I am going to try to forget all of this mess and start over. I am not sure what happened to Miss Katz's house or the bodies inside, and I don't care. I needed to tell my story online because no one I know will believe me, and because I am not sure if I will live to tell the tale anyways. Every motel that I have stopped at has the same van that parks in the back of the lot at 3 a.m. when I should be asleep and not notice. A van with a purple flower logo. They leave at 6 a.m. before I should wake up. I noticed each time because I have not slept since that night. I know I have nightmares waiting for me when I finally crash, but I am not ready to face them yet. Story 5. My flatmates and I keep waking up to our rooms rearranged perfectly, but none of us did it. I noticed it first on a Wednesday morning. I only realized something was off because I stubbed my toe on the corner of my bed. I've lived in this room for 3 months now. Same layout, same morning routine, same bleary shuffle toward my desk to check if I'd missed any passive-aggressive seminar emails. I don't stub my toe, not unless something's moved. The bed frame was about 6 inches further from the wall than usual. Not by a lot, but enough that I knew. It left a thin line of dust visible on the carpet, where it used to sit, like a ghost outline. That's what made me stop. I stood there, blinking at it. It's not the kind of bed you move by accident. Solid wood. Heavy. You have to lift one end to reposition it. And it makes this awful scraping noise that echoes through flat. There's no way someone could have moved it during the night without waking me up or the rest of the building. I checked my door. Locked from inside. Same as always. Window? Still latched. Room? Still mine. My first thought was maybe I did it in my sleep. But I don't sleepwalk. I don't even toss and turn much. I wake up in the same position I fall asleep in. Usually with my arm completely numb and my pillow covered in drool. I moved the bed back, more annoyed than anything. My toe throbbed. That's when I noticed the lamp. It sits on my desk, angled toward my chair. Always has. I'm obsessive about my lighting setup. I do all my coursework late, and that little spotlight of yellow is the only thing keeping me from going blind during all-nighters. Now it was facing the wall, not knocked or bumped. Rotated deliberately, like someone had turned it. So the light was pointing into the corner instead of the desk, like someone wanted it not to shine on my work, or on me. I frowned, tried to remember if I'd done it. Maybe I'd been on a call and didn't want to glare in my face. Maybe I bumped it while grabbing my charger, except it wasn't just a lamp. My chair was at a different angle too, slightly pulled out from the desk. The plug for my laptop wasn't in the socket. It was neatly coiled on the table like I was prepping for a move. Nothing stolen, nothing damaged, just arranged, carefully, quietly. I didn't mention it to the others. At uni, half the flats usually hung over or high at any given point, and everyone's constantly borrowing or touching each other's stuff without asking. But my door was locked, still locked, and I sleep like I would have heard it, right? I shook it off, told myself I was tired, maybe stressed, maybe it was nothing, just uni paranoia, cabin fever, messing with myself. But that night, when I got into bed, I moved the lamp back to face the desk. I pushed the chair in and plugged the charger back in. And just before I turned off the light, I took a quick photo of my room, just to be sure. I didn't plan to mention anything. I figured if I started telling people I thought my furniture was moving on its own, someone would recommend I see a therapist, or worse, start recording me while I sleep for TikTok clout. But I didn't have to bring it up. It was Katie who cracked first. I was in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to scream when she appeared in the doorway looking like hell. Oversized hoodie, yesterday's eyeliner, socks that didn't match. Not unusual, but there was this weird tightness in her face, like she hadn't slept properly. "You were up late, right?" she asked. I shrugged. "Yeah. Why? Did you go in my room?" I blinked. "No. Why would I?" My mirrors moved. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Not accusing, exactly, but watching me too closely. It's not just moved, it's angled, like deliberately. I always keep it facing the window. Now it's turned toward the bed, and my ring light's unplugged. That made me pause. "Maybe you didn't forgot?" I offered, like sleepwalking or something. She shook her head. "I don't sleepwalk, and I always plug my ring light in before bed because I use it as a lamp. I even remember switching it on." She paused. "And my phone was under the bed this morning. I don't keep it there." We stood in silence for a beat. Kettle bubbling up behind us. "You sure you didn't go in?" "Positive," I said. "My door was locked. Didn't leave my room." "Mine wasn't," she muttered, then added too casually, "It is now." Later that day, I bumped into Jen in the hallway. She was standing outside the bathroom, arms folded, staring at nothing. "You moved my desk," she said, not looking at me. Jesus Christ, not this again. It's facing the window now. Dead center. Perfect alignment. Like some interior design freak came in during the night and decided to feng shui my coursework stress. She turned, narrowed her eyes. That's not a joke, by the way. The chair's lined up too. My Bluetooth speaker's been unplugged, and the plugs folded over the top neatly. Neatly. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. I don't do neat. The desk was immaculate, lined up like it was being presented in an IKEA showroom. A water bottle dead center. Coaster aligned. Chair pushed in. It looked curated. Jen doesn't curate. Jen leaves half-empty Monster cans in every room like she's claiming territory. "You trying to mess with us for content or something?" she asked. "Like a prank channel or some flat horror story bullshit?" "I swear I'm not doing anything," I said, holding up my hands. She didn't say anything else, just walked into the bathroom and closed the door harder than necessary. We had dinner together that night. Well, kind of. Everyone microwaved their own disasters and ended up orbiting around the living room like lazy satellites. One person on the sofa, two on the floor. Carrie perched on the armrest like a gremlin, bowl of pesto pasta in hand. "What if we're doing it to ourselves in our sleep?" she asked between mouthfuls. "Or maybe there's some flat elf," Sally added, yawning. "Like that story, the cobbler thing. But instead of shoes, it just wants our shit symmetrical." Casper the inattentive, Jen muttered. There was laughter, light, scattered, a little too forced. Then someone said quietly, "Or maybe we got a creep with a key." Everyone stopped for a second. Then Katie snorted. "If someone's creeping around rearranging my shit instead of robbing me, they're the weirdest criminal alive." "Or the most patient," Sally said. She was mostly under a blanket now, just her eyes and wine glass visible. "They're playing the long game. Next week they'll alphabetize our books and sort the spice rack by trauma." More laughter. As we all went off to bed, I heard it. The quiet click. One by one. Everyone was locking their doors now, including mine. And yet, in the morning, things still weren't quite right. I started keeping a log. Not some proper journal, or anything, just a note on my phone titled, where I listed what had changed and when. At first it was small stuff. Thursday 9/12, bed 4 inches off center. Friday 8:44, lamp turned fully toward wall again. Saturday 10:03, been emptied, perfectly clean bag, no smell. That last one weirded me out more than the others. We're 5 students living in a 3-bed flat. No one empties a bin without complaining about it at least twice. And definitely not without stuffing it full of food wrappers, crushed Red Bulls, and someone's half-eaten rice that started its own ecosystem. But Saturday morning, pristine, bag tucked neatly around the rim. No overhang, no smell, no noise, like it had never been used. That same night, I moved my desk slightly, just to test something. I dragged it an inch to the left, not enough to notice casually, but enough that I'd know. I took a photo before bed, tucked my chair in, locked the door, left my charger plugged in, did everything exactly how I wanted it. Woke up the next morning. Desk was back, chair slightly further under, charger unplugged and coiled neatly on the windowsill. But the worst part, there was a fresh post-it note on my monitor that said, "Nice try." I stood there for so long my phone alarm restarted. I didn't touch anything. I didn't even breathe properly. No one else had keys to my room. No one had come in. I checked the photo, desk moved, time-stamped. I checked the new one, desk back, time-stamped. It wasn't a prank. Not anymore. I confronted the others in the kitchen, calmly. No accusations. I just said, "Someone's in my room while I sleep." They all looked at me like I dropped a turd in the sink. "You sure you're not just doing it and forgetting?" Carrie asked, voice too light. "No offense, mate, but you're not exactly a heavy sleeper," Katie added. "You wake up when someone breathes outside your door." "Could be stress," Sally offered. "You got that coursework due, right?" Jen didn't say anything. just stared into her cereal like it had answers. So I asked her directly, "Anything weird in your room?" She hesitated, long enough to make everyone else turn toward her. "My laptop's on the floor every morning," she said finally. "Closed. Battery dead. I keep it charging on my desk. Every night." "Could have fallen," someone said. "Every night." No one responded. "And it's not just fallen," Jen added. "It's placed, right under the bed. And my desk drawer's always open crack." She looked up. "Someone's looking through my stuff. I can feel it." That night, we all locked our doors again. Some of us stacked chairs against the handle. Sally wedged a spoon under hers for vibes. Didn't matter. Next morning, every room was changed. Katie's desk had been rotated a full 90 degrees to face her wardrobe. Carrie's bookshelf was sorted by color. Sally's wall calendar was flipped to October 2031. Mine, everything was perfect. Bed, desk, and lamp aligned like a blueprint. Every item spaced evenly. A line of socks laid out end to end, like someone had measured the gap between them. And on my windowsill, another post-it. This one said, "Better. By this point, I'd ruled out a prank. If someone was fucking with us, they were doing it with the dedication of a serial killer or a niche performance artist. No chaos, no mess, no attention seeking. Just quiet, invasive order. Everything clean. Everything intentional." So I did the only thing I could think of. I set up a camera. I dug out my old Logitech webcam from the drawer under the socks and random cables void, dusted it off, and wedged it onto the shelf above my desk. Not subtle, not fancy, but high enough to get most of the room. Bed, desk, chair, door. The cupboard wasn't in frame, but whatever. I wasn't expecting a ghost crawlspace episode. I cleared 100 gigabytes off my laptop, created a folder labeled "Do Not Delete," open OBS, hit record. I even left the lights on just to make sure the footage wouldn't be pitch black. If something moved, I'd see it. I checked the angle 3 times before bed, took a photo of the setup, locked my door, hid the key in my sock drawer. Then I laid down, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling like I was waiting to be abducted. Recording 1. Size, 1.8 megabytes. The next morning, the file was exactly 2 seconds long. Video, black and white still the room. No audio, no movement. And I wasn't in the bed, just an empty frame. Covers untouched. Pillow hasn't been laid on. Like I hadn't been there at all. I checked the time code, 11:11 p.m., which is exactly when I turned the camera on. I told myself maybe I hit record after I got up to turn off the light. Maybe it glitched. Maybe it corrupted. I told myself a lot of things. Recording 2. Night 2, I tried again. Same setup. Double-checked the software. Triple-checked the angle. Left the lights on again. Left the laptop charging. This time, the recording was 7 minutes long. Progress. I thought until I watched it. The footage started normal. Me climbing into bed, adjusting the blanket, grabbing my phone. Then jump cut. No fade. No glitch. Just an abrupt edit. 1 second I'm lying there scrolling, TikTok. The next bed empty. Room quiet. Nothing moves. The last 5 minutes of the file were just stillness. But here's the worst part. I checked my screen time. It said I'd been on my phone until 3:27 a.m. The video ends at 11:22. Recording 3. I wasn't the only one trying to catch something. Sally came into my room Sunday afternoon, looking pale under her usual Disney hoodie. "Can you help me check something?" she asked. She had her phone in her hand. Shaky. I tried filming last night. I used a time-lapse thing on my phone and left it on my shelf, just to see. We plugged into my laptop and watched a 30-second clip. Most of it was static. A few faint shifts as she moved in her sleep. Nothing major. Then around 18 seconds in, there was a frame where her blanket was gone. Then back. Then gone again. And for 2 frames, literally 2 out of hundreds, her body was sitting up, not moving, not looking around. Just upright, head tilted forward, arms limp at her sides, like she'd been dropped into a chair from above. "I don't remember that," she whispered. We scrolled back, frame by frame. And I shit you not, between one blink and the next, she was lying down again, blanket restored, like someone pressed undo. She made me delete the file after that. Didn't even want to keep it on her phone. She started sleeping with the light on after that, and a knife under her pillow. Not for self-defense, she said, just to feel like she was choosing something. Recording 4. File size, 2.4 gigabytes. Duration, 5 hours, 17 minutes. Night 3. I filmed again. This time I turned the webcam around. Let it point toward me. Just me in bed, eyes closed. Still, I wanted to know if I moved, if I got up, if I talked to my sleep. I hit play. For the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. Just me, asleep, twitching once or twice. Then, at 3:33, the image warped. One frame only. Just long enough to see a second version of me, sitting upright in the chair across the room, watching me. Next frame, it was gone. Bed still. Me asleep. No one in the chair. I paused it. Rewound. Frame by frame. There. Half lit. Barely visible. My face. My hoodie. Sitting still. Watching me. And my eyes were open. I didn't sleep much after seeing the footage. I kept telling myself I'd imagined it. That the lighting was playing tricks. That I was overtired. That maybe it wasn't me in the chair, just a shape that looked like me, a trick of the shadows, a glitch in the pixels. But the more I rewound that single frame, the more I knew it was me, or at least something that wore my face. Monday afternoon, I showed it to Katie. She was the only one who didn't seem completely freaked out by all the weirdness so far. The only one still cracking jokes in the group chat. The only one still using the kitchen bin like it hadn't been silently mocking us for 2 weeks. I found her in the kitchen eating toast off a cutting board like a gremlin. Got a sec? I asked, now if this is another my desk moved 1 centimeter again update. Just look at this. I passed her my laptop, hit pause on the frame. 3:33. There I was, lying in bed, and there, across the room, a second me sitting perfectly still in the chair, faint but visible, 1 frame only. She squinted at it, then leaned back. That's your reflection, she said. There's no mirror there. Then it's a smudge? You think I glitched my webcam with a smudge? She sighed, chewing slowly. James, I get it. You're freaked out. We're all freaked out. But if you stare at enough frames of grainy footage at 3 a.m., you're going to start seeing all kinds of shit. I'd bet if I look hard enough, I'd see mine in doing the Macarena behind your desk. I didn't laugh. This isn't a joke, Kat. She softened a little, but only a little. Look, even if that's you in the chair, so what? Sleepwalking? Weird subconscious thing? I once woke up holding a Wagamama's menu I didn't remember stealing. Brains are messy. I just stared at her. You think I sleepwalked across the room, sat in a chair, stare at myself, then vanish without triggering motion blur? You think there's another explanation? I didn't answer. She handed the laptop back. Maybe don't keep watching it. You're just feeding it. Feeding what? She didn't answer that either. Just scraped the crumbs off the board and left the room. Flat chat at 14:22 message from Jen. Can we all be in the kitchen tonight? Not optional. 7 p.m. This is getting fucking weird. Then Sally replied with a thumbs up and a thumbs up emoji, which somehow made it worse. By 7:05 p.m., we were all there. Katie on the counter, swinging her legs. Carrie curled into the corner chair like she was part of the furniture. Jen standing, pacing, fuming. Sally with her hands wrapped around a mug like it contained holy water. Me quiet, watching, wondering if I should have filmed this too. Okay, Jen said, dragging a hand through her hair. Cards on the table. No jokes, no ghost banter, no TikTok theories. Bold of you to assume I had jokes left, Katie muttered. Carrie, Jen said sharply, turning to her, where did your bedside table go? Carrie blinked. What? You said last night it was gone. Gone. Not moved. Gone. Like it never existed. Carrie pulled her sleeves down over her hands. I thought it was a dream. You still think it was a dream? No answer. Jen turned to Sally next. Tell them. Sally shifted in her seat. Eyes darted between all of us. I heard music last night. In my room. At like 4 a.m. Was someone playing it? Katie asked. No. It wasn't coming from anywhere. It was just there, like it was in the air. Not loud. Just this low, slow, really sad music. You're sure you weren't dreaming? Sally hesitated, then pulled something out of her pocket. It was her phone. On it, a voice memo. Timestamp, 4:03 a.m. She hit play. We listened in silence as faint, tinny audio filled the room. It was hard to describe, half lullaby, half funeral march. Echoey, off-key, faint chimes, and something like breathing underneath. I didn't record that, she whispered. I found it this morning. No one spoke. Then Katie broke the silence. Look, this is all weird, yeah, but let's not start acting like we're in some student house remake of Paranormal Activity. Stuff moves. People forget things. Maybe we're stressed. Maybe it's mold. Maybe we're all just going a bit nuts. You think mold made my calendar jump to 2031? I asked. Yes, she said. Time mold. It's like regular mold but rude. Someone laughed. It sounded like a cough. Jen slammed her hand on the table. I woke up outside. That got everyone's attention. What? Carrie asked, voice thin. This morning, I woke up outside. Front steps. No shoes. No phone. Just there. How the fuck? No idea. Door was locked. No one heard anything. And my pillow was still on my bed. She looked around, breathing fast. And none of you even noticed I was gone. We thought you were at the library. Katie said weakly. I wasn't, Jen snapped. I was sitting in the fucking cold watching the streetlights flicker like I was trapped in a screensaver. Everyone went quiet again. Until Carrie, voice barely audible, said, I think my room's getting smaller. What? I measured the floor last week, just out of curiosity. It was 2.3 meters wide. Now it's 2.1. Maybe you measured wrong. Maybe, she said, but my bed frame doesn't fit like it used to. There's scratch marks where it scraped the wall. New ones. Jen finally looked at me. James. I met her eyes. Thought about showing them the footage again. Instead, I just said, I don't think we're alone. After the meeting, things weirdly got easier. No one solved anything, obviously. We didn't exorcise a ghost or discover a haunting clause in our tenancy agreement. But just saying it out loud, all of it, made it feel less suffocating, less personal, like whatever was happening. It wasn't just happening to me. We started sharing notes. Literally. We made a Google Doc. Jen color-coded every incident green for minor weirdness, orange for concerning, red for existential horror. Carrie added timestamps. Sally tried to include temperature readings and moon phases for some reason. Katie drew a dick in the margins, and we left it there because it made us laugh. For the first time in weeks, I slept without my shoes on. That Friday, we had dinner together. Like actual dinner. Everyone made a dish. Jen even lit a candle like it was date night. We sat on the floor and talked about anything but the flat. Course deadlines. Gossip. What happened to that one guy from pre-drinks who disappeared halfway through first term. We laughed. Like, proper laughed. For about 3 hours, I felt normal. Later, I went to my room. Did the usual check the locks, align the desk how I wanted it, plug everything in. No camera tonight. No notes. No tests. Just sleep. Or that was the plan. Until I checked the footage from last week. The one I hadn't opened yet. Recording 5. The night after Jen woke up outside. I hadn't touched it because I already knew that night had been fucked, but curiosity got me. File name, rec 2024-10-09-2307.mp4 duration, 6 hours, 14 minutes. Size, 5.1 gigabytes. Time code, 2307 to 521. I press play. It started the same. Me getting into bed. Lights off. Stillness. At 0:32, I sat up, not suddenly, not like I was startled awake. Just rose slowly, like I was pulled up by a string. I turned, swung my legs over the bed, stood, then I walked out of frame. For the next 2 hours, the room stayed empty. At 3:33, the camera glitched. The screen flashed just once, like static. When the image returned, I was back, sitting at the desk, facing the camera, awake, still, staring straight into the lens. And then I spoke. There was no sound, no audio at all, but my mouth moved, slowly, precisely, 5 words. I replayed it, lip read, frame by frame. You're not watching this live. Then I smiled, a cold, dead smile, and leaned forward as if to get closer to the lens. Then the feed cut to black. I sat frozen, then hit replay. This time, there was no glitch, no desk, no movement, no smile, just me, asleep in bed, perfectly still the whole time. I checked the file size. It had changed. 3.8 gigabytes now. Shorter runtime. Different checksum. Like it had been overwritten. But I remembered it. I knew what I'd seen. I still felt the eyes on me. I went back to the Google Doc. Scrolled to the entry for that night. Green. Nothing happened. All good. I changed it to red. Then I deleted the entire spreadsheet. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't trust the footage. I don't trust the mirrors. I don't trust myself. I've deleted the files, reinstalled the software, tried to scrub my hard drive like I could erase whatever's gotten into it or into me. But the videos keep coming back. Sometimes they're already waiting on my desktop when I wake up. Perfectly titled. Perfectly cut. Edited down to only the moments I don't remember. I don't remember writing this. But it's here, in the drafts folder of my Reddit account. Dated a week ago. Titled exactly what I would have named it. Everything spelled right. Everything accurate. Including this line I haven't typed yet. You're not watching this live. Edit. Thank you for the comments. I tried logging out and deleting the draft, but it keeps restoring itself, even after a full wipe. I'm going to leave my laptop in the kitchen tonight. If it follows me, then I guess I'll know. Story 6. I recorded a customer at work. Now the voices won't leave me. I don't usually post on Reddit, but I don't know where else to turn. Last month I started my new job at the coffee shop. The pay was not all that much, but every bit helps. All of the customers seem plain to start out with, but there's this one customer I can't understand today. Every night at 11, this guy comes in. He looks wild-eyed and creepy. I didn't want to serve him, but the boss says to serve everyone willing to pay. His voice started to become strange. I thought it was nothing. Maybe it was how the shop sounded. I even called my boss, but they just brushed it off. Then his voice got weirder. I thought it was the hiss of the espresso machine, the steam twisting the words in my head. It wasn't only one voice anymore. It was quite hard to make out, but the quiet voice was calling me by name over and over. He was saying, "Help me." I tried to be rational. I even recorded it. I pulled out my cell phone to record it, see if it was the white noise you hear from the coffee machine. It might have been that I was tired. Later on, when he was not near, I played his voice again. It wasn't one additional voice. It was 5, all trying to come out at the same throat. I played it back for my boss the next morning. He didn't laugh. He didn't tell me it was the espresso machine. He just gave me this look, like he'd heard it before. "Don't talk about it," he said. His voice was low, flat. That guy's been coming in for years. He leaned closer, glancing at the door as if the customer might walk in any second. I went to the cops once. They said no crime had been committed, no law against whatever this is. Then he just walked away, like the conversation had never happened. I didn't get any sleep that day. The next time I saw him, I recorded him again. The additional voices weren't saying, "Help me." They were calling out my name. I panicked, I told the boss I was going on break. He looked like he understood. That night, the customer was taken care of. He paid, sat in his usual seat, then left without a word. Nothing happened, at least not out loud, but it gave me an idea. If audio picked up the voices, what would the video show? So the next night, I propped my phone on the counter and hit record while I serve him. I tried to act normal, smile, and hand him his coffee. Then later, I glanced at the screen. That's when I dropped the phone. On video, his face wasn't a face at all. It was a blur, like a deck of photos shuffled too fast. Dozens of different mouths, different eyes, different people, all smeared together and flickering with every frame. And some of them were staring straight at the camera. The next night, I couldn't bring myself to record him again. I was afraid of what I would see. I shoved my phone deep in my pocket and tried to act normal. I kept telling myself it was a trick of the camera, a bad screen, or recording errors. But then something happened that I can't explain away. He didn't come in. 11 o'clock passed. Midnight. The shop was empty except for me and the buzz of the lights. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt watched. I was on cleanup duty that night. And then, about 3 in the morning, I heard it. Not from him. Not from the door. From the speakers in the ceiling. The ones that play soft jazz after closing. My name, Bobby W. 5 voices whispering at once. Tangled, overlapping. The same ones from the recordings. They didn't stop until I shut off the power. I don't know what to do now. I can't sleep. I can't even walk into the shop without feeling like they're waiting for me. And if I'm honest, I don't think they're confined to that man anymore. I think they follow me home. Story 7. Boil Water Advisory in Pine Ridge. Hey everyone, this is Sam. I work at the Pine Ridge Water Plant. Nothing glamorous. I'm not an engineer or anything. I just run the daily checks, log the numbers, and make sure everything flows the way it's supposed to. Most people don't even think about their water until the tap runs dry, but I spend my mornings staring at it through monitors and filter jars. Normally, it's boring work. Pine Ridge has always prided itself on mountain spring water, the purest in the state. You can even buy bottles of it at the gas station with our little town logo printed on the label. Tourists come through, grab a case, and brag about how clean it tastes compared to city water. I'll admit, that's part of why I like this job. Feels good to be part of something that people trust every day without thinking. But the past week or so, some of the readings haven't been quite right. Nothing huge, just small anomalies in the microbial counts. The Water Purification Board says everything is within safe limits. Those are their exact words. They're technically correct. The numbers aren't high enough to trigger any automatic advisories. Still, they're higher than I've ever logged in my 6 years here. I'm not saying it's dangerous. If you pour a glass of water from your kitchen sink, it looks crystal clear. Smells fine too. But a few locals have mentioned a faint bitterness when they drink from the tap, like there's a penny at the bottom of the glass. I've noticed it myself, if I'm honest. Not always, but enough that it's on my mind. And maybe this is unrelated, but pets around town have been acting strange. My neighbor's lab has been listless for a few days. A couple of cats at the edge of town were taken to the vet with stomach issues. People are brushing off. Animals get sick, it happens, but the timing feels off. I asked the board if we should issue a boil advisory, just to be safe. They said no. It would cause unnecessary panic. Maybe they're right. Still, I figure it couldn't hurt to say something myself. So here it is. If you're worried, boil your water before drinking or stick to bottled if you can. That'll kill anything that might be hanging around in the system. This isn't an official announcement. The town hasn't declared anything, and I don't want people thinking I'm blowing a whistle or starting rumors. I'm just a guy who looks at the same water you all drink, and I'd rather be overly cautious than silent. If you don't live in Pine Ridge but know someone who does, please pass this along. We're a small town, word of mouth spreads fast, but I don't want anyone missing it. I'll keep doing my job and log in the numbers. Maybe this whole thing will be gone in a week, and I'll feel silly for posting. But right now, I can't shake the feeling that something's a little off. And when it comes to water, a little off is enough reason to be careful. Story 8. I saw something wearing my friend's face. You ever hear voices in the woods? Not just like, oh, maybe someone's out hiking, but voices that sound close, too close. That makes your stomach drop because no one's supposed to be there? Yeah, that happened to me, and I still don't know what the hell it was. So, this was the summer after graduation. We were finally done with high school, me, Aaron, Jay, Priya, and Tiff. 5 of us. We wanted to celebrate the way you only can when you're 18 and invincible. Jay found this camping spot way out in Wisconsin called Indian Mound Reservation. Locals just call it IMR. It's one of those Boy Scout properties, kind of maintained but mostly left alone now. Thick woods, old trails, and yeah, deep Native American history. The kind of land that holds onto things. I brought my dog, Nova, black lab mix. Sweet as hell, chill in the car, never bites. But the second we got out near the edge of the reservation, she changed. I mean, ears back, tail stiff. She was whining, pacing in circles, growling at absolutely nothing. I figured maybe she smelled a coyote or something. But even after 45 minutes, she wouldn't calm down. It was late afternoon, maybe 4:30. Summer light just starting to mellow out. Sky kind of grayed over with clouds, like the sun was struggling to push through. The whole place had that washed-out color tone. Pines and birches and muted greens, the dirt path pale and dry. Everything looked normal, but felt wrong. You know what I mean? We were still wandering around, trying to find a flat spot for the tents when Nova just froze. Dead stop. Wouldn't move an inch. I kept tugging her leash, but she just growled low and locked her legs. Priya walked over to check what was freaking her out, and that's when we noticed it. This weird pile of stones. Like, not random. They were arranged. Almost like those old-school burial markers you see in documentaries. I tied Nova to a branch and walked toward it. From afar, it looked small, but as we got closer, the thing opened up into this shallow pit, like a circle had been carved right into the earth. The air shifted the second I stepped in, dead still and way colder than it should have been. Summer evening. But I swear it felt like late October. I started noticing these small, flat stones near the center. Some of them had symbols scratched into them. Nothing super clear, but like spiral shapes, slashes, maybe even letters? I don't know. But standing there, I got this wave of dizziness. Like heavy-lid sleepy. Out of nowhere. That's when Aaron, he's this lean guy, glasses, always makes stupid bets, called out, said our names loudly. He was standing just outside the pit, looking concerned. We climbed out, kind of groggy, and walked over to him. And he said the weirdest thing. He thought we were messing with him, because apparently, the second we stepped inside the circle, we just stood there, frozen, staring at nothing. He said he was about to come get us when he heard footsteps behind him, heavy ones, and Nova started going nuts, barking and howling like she was ready to fight. So he grabbed her and rushed over to us. The thing is, I remember moving around in there, checking out the stones. I swear I walked the whole circle, but according to Aaron, we never moved. Anyway, we bummed around for a while, trying to pick a spot. Jay found this clearing up on a small ridge, slightly sloped but dry, with the sick overlook facing west. We could see the tree line dipping into some valley far off, and even spot a chunk of what we thought was more of these old burial mound areas through the gaps. We were joking, setting up tents, collecting firewood, cracking open drinks, but I kept hearing these voices. At first, I thought maybe I was just hearing echoes or something bouncing off the hills. But they weren't echoes. They were close. Not whispers or yelling, just normal speaking voices. But like muffled and garbled. I couldn't make out any words, just the rhythm of the conversation. And it sounded like it was right over my shoulder. But every time I turned, there was nothing. No one. I tried to brush it off. Kept telling myself it was just other campers. But there weren't any other camps nearby. The ranger station was miles away. No cars, no smoke. Still, I told myself I was just overthinking. We were about done setting up when Tiff came jogging back from the trees. Dude looked spooked, pale, breathing hard. He kept glancing over his shoulder like someone was behind him. "I swear someone was following me," he said. "Didn't run, just walked behind me, step by step. I thought it was one of you guys screwing around." We laughed. Of course we did. Said, "Dude, it's a forest. Probably a deer." But even Nova had her eyes fixed on the path he came from. We tried to forget it. Made a fire, cooked hot dogs, and passed around some snacks. Everything felt halfway normal. But one thing that felt odd was how quiet the wood is. Too quiet. No crickets. No wind. Like the place was holding its breath. Later, around 10, I crawled into my tent and realized I had left my flashlight in the car. It was a little way off, maybe 200 meters down a trail, past the burial marker rocks. So I headed out, no big deal. Halfway there, I saw Aaron. Or I thought I saw Aaron. He was ahead of me, maybe 40, 50 feet, walking toward a different trail that veered toward the cliffside. I recognized his big maroon hoodie and that lazy shuffle walk he does. And he was whistling this dumb tune we'd all been joking about earlier. So I shouted, "Bro, where you going? I'm heading to the car, need my torch." He didn't answer, just turned and grinned a little, then said, "Why are you following me?" His voice had this delay, like an echo, or like he was practicing the line first. I laughed, called out again, "I'm not following you, man. Chill." But he kept walking faster, turned the corner, and disappeared into the dark. I got to the parking area, grabbed my flashlight. On my way back, I paused at the fork in the trail, looked down the path he'd taken. It was just black, silent. When I got back to camp, I was like, "Yo, Aaron, why'd you bail on me? I saw you walking off." He looked at me, confused as hell. "What are you talking about? I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes. Tiff chimed in. He didn't leave. We've all been here. My blood went cold, because I know what I saw. The hoodie, the whistle, the voice, that was him. I tried to shake it off. They said I was tired, or drunk, or both. And honestly, I started to believe it. Until what happened at 3 a.m. I woke up needing to pee. Sucks, I know. So I grabbed my flashlight and walked off into the woods a bit. Did my business, turned back, and that's when I heard it. The sound of a tent zipper. I froze. Then, a few seconds later, I saw someone step out of the tent. It looked like Aaron again. He walked a bit, lit a cigarette. I watched the lighter flick 3 times before it caught flame. Each strike of the lighter lit his face for maybe half a second. And every single time, it looked wrong. Not dramatic, just off. The first flash hit his face, and his eyes were all white. No pupils. No focus. I felt this jolt go through me. Second flick, his pupils were back, but they were tiny. Dots. The third flash, his face moved. Not flinched, but really moved. The skin shifted sideways, slow, as if it wasn't attached right, sliding across his skull. I kept staring, expecting the features to settle back to normal, but they didn't. The proportions kept slipping. It felt like watching someone wear Aaron's face like a skin suit. He finally lit that cigarette and took one slow drag. That's when he looked at me and said, "Can you hear me?" And his voice? It was Aaron's voice, but like it had been recorded, played back. I said, "Yeah, man, what's up with your face?" In a louder, sharper tone, he said, "Can you hear me?" I was like, "Yeah, chill. You try and wake everyone up?" He shook his head and turned toward the cars. I followed, still thinking he was just messing with me. Except when I rounded the car where he'd gone, no one was there. Like, no one. He vanished. I stormed back, pissed, went to his tent, yanked it open, and he and Jay were both already awake, sitting upright, wide-eyed. They said someone had unzipped their tent minutes earlier, opened it, waited, then zipped it back up. They hadn't moved because they were terrified, but they swore it wasn't them. I don't know what I followed that night. but it looked like Aaron. Walked like him, smiled like him, whistled like him, asked the exact question he would, but it wasn't him. None of us slept much after that. Nova didn't lie down at all. Just kept pacing in circles around our tents like she was guarding something. In the morning, we packed up fast. Didn't even stay for breakfast. The trail felt heavier. Somehow, I've told people this story before. They say it's stress. Sleepwalking. Maybe. But I know what I saw. And the worst part is, I don't think it left. On our way back, in the car, I caught a glimpse. Rear view mirror, split second, Aaron. Standing behind the trees, near the edge of the reservation. Same maroon hoodie, same posture. Just watching. I turned around fast, hard in my throat. But Aaron was right there in the back seat between Priya and Tiff. Head down, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up the rest of the drive. Not once. I don't think it wanted to hurt us. I think it just wanted to be us. Story 9. Exploding head syndrome. Ever heard of exploding head syndrome? I hadn't, until it happened. More than once. The first time was after a nap. An explosion woke me inside my skull. Not thunder, not a car engine. Inside between my ears like a metal balloon bursting. I walked the house to see what the hell had blown. Everything was normal. My mom watering the plants. Warm air. Did you hear that? You were dreaming, she said. I believed her for a while. 2 nights later, again, sheets of rain, lightning everywhere. But what I heard wasn't strike. It was a private bomb with nowhere to echo. In the kitchen, I drank water and Googled the symptoms. Exploding head syndrome. A silly cartoon of a stunned man. Not serious, just distressing. Lights off. Next morning it happened again. I tried to act normal until the bathroom. The mirror gave me a different face. Swelling, lumps, bruises. A lip like a tennis ball. No pain. Not even when I pressed it. Maybe I fell. I told my mom. Sleepwalking. Where? She said. I don't see anything. That's when the different fears showed up. The fear I was going insane. Back to the mirror. The marks were still there. I punched my cheek with a closed fist. Felt the punch, not the wound. The doorbell rang. The neighbor wanted oil. Do I look off? I asked. You look fine, he said. I took a selfie. Perfect. Photos lied. Mirrors didn't. The 4th blast hit at lunch, with my mouth full. I jumped from the chair, spat food, ran to my room. Worse, a fresh gash with dry blood along the edges. My right temple swollen. Pushing ear, the eye half buried. My mom stood behind me, hand on my shoulder. She didn't speak. We booked an appointment. Psychiatry in 2 weeks. That night another one came. And another. Between them, the same kit. Pressure on the eardrums like a plane dropping. Fluoresceum. A metallic taste that water wouldn't wash away. I stopped looking at mirrors. Showered without looking. Dried without looking. Brushed my teeth in the kitchen. I learned the house's tricks. The oven door reflects the overhead is on. The microwave rim, too. The TV's black bezel when it's off. Worse, outside, any shop window could hand me a second of that warped face that wasn't mine anymore. We live surrounded by reflections. I get all of them. They admitted me for 2 days. More than 100 blasts, near, far, right beside me. Nurses checked vitals. Doctors muttered. Someone said stress, someone parasomnia. I listened to the hum like tape that never cuts. Some blasts stopped sounding and started biting. Others sound like screams. I don't know if they were mine. Little by little, each blast brought something new. Once, my left ear went deaf for half an hour. Another time, my right eye doubled, but only inside the mirror. Out here everything was fine. In glass, half my face took one lane, and the other half another, like the reflection had its own traffic. I tried a week without mirrors. When I came back, the mirror punished me. My forehead split, a cross-shaped cut, bone peeking like a bad tooth. I laughed by reflex. No idea why. My mom asked me not to lock myself in. Said that made it worse. I said worse was looking. We covered the mirrors with towels. They looked like framed funerals. The house still had eyes. A spoon was enough. One blast found me in the bank line. Nobody turned. Metal flooded my mouth. I caught myself in the glass door. My lip hung like a bag. I blinked and it snapped back. I wanted to tell someone, but they called the next number and I stayed quiet. The ticket said 73. I let 74 go past me. I Googled again out of habit. Forums. People who see everything. People who see nothing. People who joke. I closed it all. The hum stayed. I don't know when I decided to end this. The idea stuck clean neat. The gun on the nightstand. The last decision in the bathroom. I went to the mirror to aim. I did what anyone would do. Look for an eye. A temple. There wasn't a face above my neck. There was something buckled and wet. A black rose with petals of flesh. Veins knotted, bone splinters like thorns. I brought the barrel close to the glass and tried to find a center. The reflection didn't give me one. I set the gun on the sink and listened. Another blast came, small, like a snap. Then the hum. The metal returned to my tongue. I can't keep living like this. I want to sleep. Story 10. This morning I received a video. In the video, someone was torturing me. While checking the notifications on my computer, my eyes drifted to the corner of the screen. A link someone had sent to my email. It was from an anonymous sender. I set down the sandwich I'd just made for breakfast and clicked the video link. I work as a barista in a small local coffee shop. My life is pretty simple. I'm always friendly to people. Never had an argument with a customer. I mean, there's really no reason for someone to pull a sick prank on me like this. The video began with someone fiddling with a camera. When their hands moved away, the footage stayed blurry for a few seconds, but I could already make out someone sitting on a chair with their head hanging down. When it focused, I froze. The person's hands and feet were zip-tied to the chair. A pool of red spread beneath him. I knew exactly what it was. Blood. It was dripping from cuts all over their body. His white shirt was torn to shreds, but I recognized it. Our work uniform. The wounds looked black on the grainy camera. Since the angle didn't show his face, I could only tell his head was tilted forward from the way his hair fell. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police, but then I stopped. I didn't know where this was filmed, or when, except maybe I did. The background looked familiar. The mop, the jars on the shelves. It was a storage room behind my cafe. At first, the only sound was a buzzing fluorescent light. Then I heard something else, soft whimpering. The bound man. He started crying, begging in a faint voice. No, please. That's when another figure entered the frame. Plaid flannel shirt, jeans, boots. He was huge, maybe 6'5", and in his hand he held a knife. He stepped up to the tied-up guy and swung a punch, so hard it shook his whole body. Then he grabbed his head, forcing it upward. The veins in his neck bulged. The man raised a knife. I couldn't see the cut itself, but the piercing scream that followed told me everything. It was so shrill the mic cut out at times. Blood poured from his throat like someone had dumped a bucket of it. I gagged, spitting up the bite of sandwich I'd just taken. And it wasn't just blood. Some whitish, slimy substance leaked out with it. Something wet hit the floor. It was... I don't even know how to describe it. Veins, tissue, dripping red. The guy's screams turned into heartbreaking sobs. The man finally pulled his hands away and turned to the camera. His hands were drenched in blood, so much that his pale skin didn't even show. He picked the camera up. A smear of blood streaked across the lens. Now it was handheld. He tilted it down toward the guy, still slumped on the chair. Look at me. The guy didn't respond. Maybe unconscious. I said, look at the camera. He grabbed his chin, forcing his face toward the lens, and I nearly fell out of my chair. It was my face, except one of my eyes was missing. Where my right eye should have been, there was only blood and that slimy mucus-like stuff. Cuts covered the rest of my skin. Dry clumps of blood matted my hair. I looked barely human. The man turned my head left and right like a trophy, while I sobbed. "What a perfect face," he muttered. He let go and my head flopped forward again. The camera pulled back, showing my whole body tied to the chair. Then it turned toward a metal table. On it sat a single object, a handgun. The man picked it up, checked the chamber. It was full. Then he turned the camera back to me. My one remaining eye widened in panic. My limp body suddenly thrashed like a fish out of water. "No, don't do it, please." I screamed. The man laughed, the same laugh that would haunt me later. Then, bang, the video ended. It had to be a prank. I mean, I never experienced anything like that. Maybe they hired an actor who looked like me. Still, when I replayed the part where my face was shown, the resemblance was exact. Same eye color, same birthmark above my eyebrow. Why would anyone go to such insane lengths just to mess with me? I tried contacting the sender, but the email was unreachable. I considered calling the police, but what would I even say? No crime had technically happened. The clock on my computer read 8:50. I was already late for work. I forced myself to leave the video behind as the most disturbing thing I'd ever seen and headed to the cafe. The whole day I was a wreck. Messed up orders, spaced out at the register. Every time my mind drifted, I saw that blood-soaked version of me. Heard the scream, heard the gunshot. Near closing time, I was wiping down the counter, finally starting to forget when the bell above the door jingled. "Sorry, we're CLO." I froze mid-sentence. Plaid flannel, jeans, boots. "Can't you make an exception for me?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Just an espresso, please." The determination in his eyes made my skin crawl. I instinctively backed away, bumping into the counter and knocking over a cup. "New on the job, huh? A little clumsy." He laughed, the same laugh from the video. My blood turned to ice. He pulled out a chair, sat down, never breaking eye contact. "I'll wait. I'm writing this now from the storage room." The door locked behind me. I haven't called the police yet, but I will. I just don't know what to say. Should I mention the video? If anyone reads this, please tell me what I should do. He's coming.